Okay, last one here. Let's look at a little kind of a VJ fader type of situation. This is really similar to if you look back at the tap tempo demo during the sound visualization series. Um, this is kind of something that I used for that Jujuka VJ thing. So what I have here is how many movies do I have? I have like 12 different movies. And I'm going to go ahead and hide all those. Going into two different switches, I've renamed them switch bank A and switch bank B. And then those are going into a cross. So what we're going to do is, so really this is like based on like what a turntable, a DJ might use on a turntable. So with this cross here, it's basically what a DJ would use on a turntable, the fader between two different records that are spinning. So we are going to change the index of bank A or bank B, depending on clicking some radio buttons. And then we'll also have a slider to control the cross. And so we can just see this setup here, what's happening. So I've got this set up so here's the fader, which I changed the visual appearance of it a little bit. By this little A, B, this is saying next time I click one of these radio buttons, which bank are you going to fill? So right now I'm looking at the faders over on bank B. So A is highlighted. Let's say I click number 1, sure. Goes back to that, okay. Click B, let's show number 2. Let's show 3. Okay, so we can see how we're just progressing through these like so. We are using a chop execute for that, which is looking at which one of these A or B buttons is selected. So we can see kind of coming out of here, I've got all my data. So my radio buttons, so bank B state, bank A state. So as I switch between these, depending on which one of these is on, I go into here, right? So I'm grabbing this bank A state, bank B state, and just saying, right, if A is 1, so automatically B is going to be 0 in that case. So if A is 1, then as the radio button changes, we're going to grab that value and set the switch index to that value. Else, which would mean if B is equal to 1, then do that same thing except change it for switch bank B. So that's how we are determining which of those two switches to actually change the index of. In general, for this chop execute, right, you need to make sure you've got the right function turned on here. So I want it to run this function every time this radio value changes. This is the chop that I'm looking at here. And I really don't need all these other ones, so I could just go ahead and delete it, but it's fine for that right now. So to kind of look in here, I've got kind of similar setup. I've got, right, actually, that's a little extra I'm going to do at the end here. So all of these have meet@parent.digits. Cool, okay. And, it's kind of sized in a way. I've got the spacing, so kind of the layout looks right. For down here, I've got, so these are 2 radio buttons, which means that only one of them is on at a time. To do this little visual trick, right, we've got the actual text and a circle over. So the circle is actually grabbing the state value from it being turned on or off, right? So it basically goes to 0 alpha if it's off, and it goes to 1 when it's on. So that's how we're doing that little trick. Beautiful. And for the panel, so for these are our radio buttons, because I wanted them to be radio buttons because I wanted either A or B to be active at once, but not both. And so in the panel, I'm actually looking at the state value. So even though they're radio buttons, they maintain that state 0 or 1, which is what I wanted. So actually, I don't really care about that radio value for the whole group. All I care about is there's different ways we could have done this in code, I guess, but I'm grabbing that state for both of those. For the slider, we've got text here, which is just like a long, right, arrows with little dashes on it, and then I changed this little knob here to be much brighter, so nice like white color. And then that is just getting the U channel for that, and I renamed it to fader. Okay, great. Go back. And so I'm also changing the align order of these. If we go to layouts, that's align order 0. Align order, oops, I'm doing that again where it's being hidden, right? Okay, align order 1 for that one. And then align order 2. Okay, beautiful. And then kind of same thing for these. I think I had align order 0, and then the kind of fader thing. Right, I made sure that's align order 1, so that shows up at the bottom. And this has children top to bottom. Okay, great. So one other thing to kind of be aware of, so I'm using that chop execute dat with Python to actually change the index value here. When we change parameters with Python, if we're looking like directly here, there's really nothing to tell us that somewhere else in our network there's some Python up to something sneaky and to actually like change its value. So we have to we just have to be like aware of knowing like, okay, like how are these changing? Oh, it's over there somewhere in the chop execute dat. Like with my cross, it's very clear, right? We can see this kind of spelled out right here because my fader channel data is coming out from my UI, and I've got this nice little arrow thing connected to it. So with the chop execute, no such thing, and we just have to kind of remember that is what is doing it. For like really big complicated thing, it'd be kind of easy to forget what is doing what all over the place. Okay, cool. And one other tiny thing here to do with perform mode. So the reason why you would be doing something like this would probably be because you're outputting your video signal to some sort of projector. If we did, let's see, where's perform windows right over here. Let me just drag this over and make it easier. And let's say I want to do this one. Okay, great. So if I went into perform mode here, right, that kind of pops up. You don't want the audience to see these stupid boxes though, right? That's not for them to see. So we also need to be aware of whatever our main thing here is. We go panel, and then we go display off. And there it is, not. So as we go to perform mode, so now that's just outputting our main image. And then what we would do is we can right click here, view, and so maybe we would actually like size a UI to whatever the size. Let's say if you have like a laptop, whatever the resolution of that screen is, might make sense to actually make it that whole resolution of the laptop screen. And then we would need to extend displays. So let's imagine like main computer is your laptop. That's where you would have your UI. Projector is extended, so that would be monitor 1. And then we go into the perform window. And so right now if I say monitor 1, it's going to give me an error because, oh, actually, yeah, it's over there. Because I do have a separate display over there. That's where OBS is living. So this will open up perform on whichever monitor you say. So usually if you have a projector hooked up, that would be monitor 1. So this would be a kind of standard setup where UI stuff stays on monitor 0, and then hit perform mode. This pops over onto the projection or some other screen or whatever, and you can control everything still from your control computer. All right.